Back for another edition of In the Huddle. Brian Baldinger, Carl Dukes with you. Put them up. Baldy, it's getting interesting, my friend. And I want to start with this Lane Johnson injury because I know you're big on offensive lines and how they operate and the guys up front and what happens. Lane Johnson gets injured in the Eagles' loss, okay, guys, to the Jets, which, again, most people didn't predict. 6 total sacks since 2021 this guy's given up. I mean, that's incredible when you think about over 2,000 snaps, Baldy. So Lane Johnson is a future Hall of Famer, right? Elite guy. He has an ankle injury, and I'm not putting that on why they lost the game. It certainly didn't help them. But I want to talk about the Eagles because they're one of the 5-1 teams I want to ask you about. Obviously, we'll talk about the 49ers as well and the Dolphins, who have a big game coming up on Sunday night against the Eagles. So, bottom line, red zone efficiency. Baldy, what are we seeing with the Eagles that's not allowing them to look like the team they looked like last year?
Well, they give up a lot of negative plays. I mean, twice they got down to the 3-yard line against the Jets last week. And on first down runs, they lost 6 yards. So they're just backing up. Now, it's interesting. It's interesting to me that they just signed Julio Jones. Because sometimes, I remember Kurt Warner told me this a long time ago when he was in Arizona, Carl. He said, you can draw up all the great red zone plays you want. You know, sometimes it's good to have Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden just to throw the ball up to and go get it. And I feel like Julio, why you would sign Julio after the injuries he's had and the decline in his production.
Yes.
We all love Julio. We all know he was the GOAT for 7-8 years. There was Calvin Johnson and Julio. Mm-hmm. You know, it went back and forth who was the best. But Julio's not that guy anymore. But the Eagles went and signed Julio. And I think a big part of it, honestly, is, all right, you got AJ here. If they take AJ out in the red zone, let's go to Julio. You got Julio, Dallas Goedert, and AJ. Maybe that's the best option. So I feel like he's a part of their issues in the red zone right now. And they can drive the ball down. They can get their big smash plays. They're having trouble scoring. They're at the bottom of the list right now for touchdown score down there. And so they're kicking way too many field goals. And even last week against the Jets, you know, a sure kicker missed one that could have won the game for him and allowed the Jets to, go down and end up winning the game. So I don't know. I just think that's an issue. Losing Lane Johnson in the first quarter last week. Look, the Jets defense is all about pressuring the quarterback. And so here comes Bryce Huff and Jermaine Johnson against the backup right tackle. I'm not picking on Jack Driscoll, but you go from Lane Johnson to whoever, there's a big drop-off. And when Jalen feels pressure, feels color coming at him, he leaves. Sometimes he leaves too early. Sometimes he doesn't trust the protection. And it's part of the malfeasance that you see in this Eagles offense that we didn't see a lot last year from.
Baldy, why can't anybody else mimic the tush push? Why can't any other team do what the Eagles do with that tush push and are able to get the 1 yard? I saw the Cowboys try it or against the Chargers. They didn't get it. I'm like, what is the deal with this particular play?
Two things. I actually talked to Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach of the Eagles, briefly now before the game. He's in the end zone. He's got his game face on. Maybe he's going to shake my hand and probably say, what's going on. But I went to the tush push on. I go, what is it? Why are you guys so good? And he goes, Baldy, he goes, when we had Carson Wentz as our quarterback, we were 36-38 on quarterback sneaks.
Oh, wow.
So before there was the tush push.
Yeah.
They were good. And I honestly believe it starts with Jason Kelce. His ability to get leverage, to get underneath people, and to get the thing started is a big part of it. And people don't have a center like that. The Giants tried it. They lost their center, John Michael Schmitz. I don't know how long he's out, but he's out on that play. Very few people have a guy that can actually start the play with leverage and power the way Kelce does and get underneath whoever's there. And then the second part of it is, going back to Carson Wentz, how big and strong he was. I mean, Jalen Hurts deadlifts 650 pounds, Carl. That's real. His leg strength and his power, waist down, is different than Daniel Jones and Dak Prescott and all these guys that are trying it, And so I think those two things really are a big part of their success.
Yeah, it's become a thing, guys. And here's what the crazy thing is. Like, it's coming. Like, it's 3rd and 1. It's 4th and 1. And you're like, okay, we know they're going to run and you can't stop it. So It's become a thing. All right, while we're talking about the Eagles, let's talk about their opponent on Sunday Night Football, the Dolphins. Baldy, Tyreek Hill's on pace for 2,300 yards. This is insane right now to think about projecting the rest of the way. He's got over 800 yards already this season. And here come the Dolphins with their high-flying offense, 5-1. Mike McDaniel, the brilliant offensive mind he is. This is going to be a great game, I think.
I think so too. And I just go back and watch this game against Carolina last week. The formations, the motions, the play action, the misdirection. We've never seen anything like this, Carl. Never. Now, Carolina's got good players everywhere on defense. Mm-hmm. Like, they ran a play last week where Tua reverses out and he fake tosses to Raheem Mostert. And I'm telling you, the whole Carolina Panther defense flew. And while that was going on, here comes Tyreek and Jalen Waddle across the formation. And pick your point. Who do you want to throw to? They're both open. And so right now, like, I don't know if the Eagles are going to go for all that kind of stuff. Like, I just think the Eagles up front, especially if Jalen Carter's healthy, can just neutralize all that motion and all that stuff physically and just maul this offense line of the Dolphins. But you have to look. You have to respect it. You don't really know sometimes where it's going. And McDaniel just keeps coming up with these formations that nobody has ever seen before. And here comes Tyreek Hill out of this little thing that he sits there next to the tight end, kind of crouched down. You don't really know what he's going to do. It's really wild. I think it's a classic case, Carl, this Sunday night of sort of like this boy genius in Mike McDaniel against this physically tough opponent. And does the physicalness of the Eagles just get neutralized, or it doesn't even come into play with all the motions and shifts and who's carrying the ball and where's the ball going? Who has the ball? Like, it's just this 3-card Monty that they're playing before the snaps. Where's the ball? Like, does that get neutralized by the Eagles' power and pass rushers that they have?
It's a great point. Brian Baldinger, Carl Dukes, it's In the Huddle, guys. Subscribe. Watch us at In the Huddle Pod on YouTube as we talk about this week's upcoming games. The Ravens are tied with the Bills for 24 sacks, or with 24 sacks through 6 seasons or 6 games. 11 players on the Ravens have at least 1 sack. They're getting after the quarterback, Baldy. And I'm curious to know if you think they're going to get after Jared Goff and have that kind of success against them as they take on the Lions at home on Sunday.
Well, the addition, it's wild. Like, they picked up Jadeveon Clowney off the street. Jadeveon is playing really well. He's playing as well as I've seen him play in a long time. He's a factor. They picked up Kyle Van Noy off the street. I was supposed to do a TV thing with him at the NFL Network. And they told me he was on a plane ride to Baltimore. And they literally signed him, plugged him, and he's playing, and he started. And then Mike McDonald is the defense coordinator of Baltimore. And, you don't know when Roquan Smith is coming on a blitz, or Patrick Queen, or, the safety's coming. Like, they're coming. And then you see the emergence of a kid like Justin Madubuike, who leads the team in sacks. And he's, like, becoming a real force inside. Explosive athlete. He destroyed Tennessee's offense on times last Sunday. They're playing really good. They've given up the fewest touchdowns in the league. I think they've given up 5 touchdowns so far this season in 6 games. Yeah. They're playing, or 5 games that they play. So they're playing really well. So, but Detroit is also playing really well. And the guy he caught a touchdown pass last week, but you saw it in college. But this Jameson Williams, he runs and stops. Maybe Tyreek can do this. Yes, he can.
Start and stop.
There's like 5 guys in this league that can run and stop the way this Jameson Williams did. He caught a 41-yard touchdown pass last week against Tampa. He just ran by everybody. Yep. Like, I called him the Comet. He looked like just the Motown Comet, like streaking right past. And then he can stop on these, you're in man coverage, you're in zone cover 3, whatever. Like, he puts the brakes on, and the corners just keep running. He's going to be a good addition to this team. He's just getting started, coming out of suspension. God, they plugged in Craig Reynolds last week. He runs the ball just fine when he had to. And the thing that's crazy, though, Carl, like they were the worst defense in football last year. Nobody was close to Detroit. And they were 30th in the league against the runs. You look at them right now, they're first in the league against the run. Number one. Like, so you look at their scheme, and what you see is this Alec Anzalone playing lights out good football at middle linebacker. As good as anybody. Like, this is going to be a defensive battle. Ravens against the run. So then, like, which quarterback can make certain plays against, really good defenses? And I feel like Jared Goff right now has the upper hand right now in how he's running this offense and what Ben Johnson and him, and they'll have a game plan for the Ravens defense in their front and all that. I'm really, it's my number one game to watch this weekend.
Me too.
The game you just talked about, Philly, Miami.
Yeah, and Baldy, here's the deal. You're absolutely right. 1 o'clock, guys, Lions at Ravens, if you want to see some physical football, because here's what the Ravens are saying. And I talked to some people on that staff and some people that I know in the building. They feel like the physicality, like they don't want to see us because the way that we're playing defensively, right? And Dan Campbell's going to say, they don't want to see us because of the way that we play. So something's got to give, right? And last week, guys, they held Tampa Bay to 2 field goals. They completely neutralized Tampa Bay's offense. And they only had 1 sack. So Ravens are number 2 in yards given up, number 2 in yards per game, number 2 in net passing yards per game. They're playing off the charts right now defensively. And, it just makes me think about, okay, what's got to give? So I'm with you, Bob. Like, this is my game. I want to sit back and just see how it plays out.
Well, you really in that Tampa game, like Tampa missed some shots. Mike Evans, got behind them. Like they missed their opportunities, just the way, Justin Herbert missed his opportunities, just the way Josh Dobbs missed his opportunities. You're going to get some chances. You got to convert. You got to hit them. And so I'm anxious to see the defense when Lamar extends these plays the way Lamar can, and all of a sudden Mark Andrews pops or Zay Flowers pops. And we're all kind of waiting to see if Odell Beckham is going to have any impact in this offense at all. And so those are the things. Those are the things that are going to decide this game. Jameson Williams got the 41-yard pass over the top. That was a big part. Amon-Ra St. Brown, made some things happen on the outside to score. They got 2 touchdowns against a stingy defense. So who can make those certain plays, 2 or 3 plays in this game that Detroit made last week, Tampa didn't? Can Baltimore make them? Does Detroit make them? It's really come down to.
It is. All right, I got to tell this story before I ask you a question, and I'm not going after you. But yesterday on my show, my producer says, "Hey, did you see what Brian Baldinger said?" And I said, "No, I didn't see what Baldy said. What did he say?" And so we start talking about the podcast. And by the way, we invite you guys, obviously, to subscribe and like and make sure you tell your friends about us. So I said, Baldy is doing some other interview. And Baldy yesterday says that, hey, Atlanta, if you bring in Tom Brady, all right, if you can find a way to bring this guy in, you guys might be 5-1. The quarterback play has been terrible. And I said, oh, here we go. So I had to explain to my audience yesterday in Atlanta, look, Baldy's been saying this about Desmond Ridder for weeks now. And the fact that he's talking about going out and having a veteran quarterback to lead the way with what you're seeing on the defensive side and how this team is playing makes total sense. But I just want you to talk about what you're seeing because, Baldy, I'm having all these conversations. Talked to Arthur Smith yesterday. Obviously, he's staying the course. He's committed to the young fella. But what are you seeing? Because the mistakes last week were brutal.
Brutal. So, like, obviously, last week, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, they had big games, Carl. Like, they caught a lot of passes. Big, we're like, okay, they're involved. And they're dynamic players. And forget about, Bijan, Cordero, who's had no impact on this team at all already this year, but he could. And I'm saying if you could take the good stuff to Drake and to Kyle last week and what we've seen from Bijan, and then you put a guy in there that's just not going to make mistakes. He's just not going to make mistakes. You go, you can't live with the mistakes. The mistakes cost him last week. This is a dynamic football team. They have drafted well. We see bits and pieces at times, but not many people have 2 6'5", 6'6" giants.
Athletic.
Run like Kyle and run like, Drake and then you got this, this Bugatti behind you in Bijan Robinson, you go, they should be blitzkrieging these teams. Like they should be like just up and down the field. And look, I'm not here to denigrate Desmond Ridder. He's a young player that's got to learn. You got to go through these growing pains. And I'm saying to myself, screw the growing pains. Like, can Brady come here and plug him in? And like part of it is far-fetched.
Yeah.
Like,
thanks for getting everybody excited here. Thanks, Baldy.
Look, it's hyperbole, okay? Like I know it's not, but I'm saying if you put a guy in there that's not making mistakes, yet fed all these terrific players behind a quality offensive line, gosh, they could win double-digit games.
Well, Baldy, here's the comparison. And we're just talking about Desmond Ridder. Listen, guys, all these young quarterbacks. C.J. Stroud looks good. Bryce Young is going through some growing pains. Anthony Richardson's done for the season with an injury. We're seeing it around the league. But the comparison for me, and we'll move on, is if you could get Brock Purdy. If you could get Brock Purdy's play, right, what you're talking about. Purdy had the same situation with the 49ers.
Yep.
Caffrey, Debo, Ayuk. And all you need to do is just deliver the football and not make mistakes. He did that and went 10-0. Now, again, the defense was, the best in the league, but I get where you're coming from. And that has been the part where I think there's been a lot of frustration is it's not as if you don't have all of this around you, just don't make the mistakes.
Well, look, I mean, this is not just to Desmond, and this is not to just young quarterbacks, but this has been going on in the league forever. Like, it's hard to win games with young quarterbacks. It just is. Because you have to allow them to make mistakes. Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions his rookie year. They won 13 games the next year when he cut all those out. Like, it's hard to win games as not only are you developing the quarterback, but you're evaluating the quarterback. Is this guy the guy? And so all that is going on. And, so it's been up and down. The week before, Desmond was really good, didn't turn, and they won a game. But they have to live with these growing pains. And all I was saying was growing pains are hard on a team that is really talented and ready to win right now. Like, to me, I picked Atlanta to win the division back in when the schedule came out.
Yeah.
I thought, but I also knew that this thing could go backwards if Desmond has these pains. And, he's not sure what he's doing sometimes. And he does make errant throws. And, that's unavoidable for a lot of these guys. But to your point, Brock Purdy, outside of last week, he didn't make a lot of mistakes, but, the offense got shut down. So I feel like that's where Atlanta's at right now. And you just have to kind of okay, you could look really good one week and take down a real powerhouse in this league and then fall backwards the next week.
Baldy, I really like Seattle young players. I like what Pete Carroll's done. I'm watching them last week against the Bengals. I was focused on that game because I wanted to see, first of all, Burrow and how he was going to play, and then I wanted to see what Seahawks were going to do coming off the bye. But, man, I like their squad. And they get, the Cardinals at home this weekend. But and I thought at the end of the game, by the way, for all the conversation about Geno and getting rid of the football, right, they had an opportunity to do something there and they weren't able to do it. Give credit to the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson and all those guys getting pressure. But the Seahawks, listen, are we sleeping on this team maybe more than what we think we should be?
Well, they were a playoff team last year. And, in their playoff loss to San Francisco, they took them deep into the third quarter with a chance to take the lead. And Geno got the ball knocked out of his hands. Bosa recovered. They finished him off. But I think this is a quality football team. And, look, they got Charles Cross back at left tackle. He struggled last week against Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. Like that group, DJ Reader, they beat him up at the end of the game, and they couldn't finish the game. Okay, so they lost up front. But Charles is a good player, and he's just got to get, he got hurt week one. He's been out. So he's got to be allowed to go back but Pete believes in his young players. Zach Charbonnet, you look at, the rookie right guard for him right now. They've got, you look at what Devin Witherspoon's doing in the slot, in Trey Brown at corner, these young guys are good players. And so they just got to keep playing, but they're going to end up putting a streak together because the team is built in the eyes of Pete Carroll. This is his team. This is how he wants to win games. He wants to run K9. He wants to run Charbonneau. He wants to play 3 tight ends. And they've got the animals on the outside, and DK and all the guys they have. Like, it's a good team. And I don't think anybody should sleep on them ever. Like, I think they can knock off anyone on any given week because of the way that they want to play. If they get a lead in the fourth quarter, like, they're going to pound the football and play keep away from you. So, look, that was a tough loss last week, but they'll bounce back from that.
I think so, too. Hey, we do have a Thursday night game tonight as we record this podcast, guys. Jags, Saints. It's only a 1-point game. I mean, it's basically a pick 'em. New Orleans 1-point favorite at home. But the Jags have won 3 in a row. We know, Baldy, it's hard to win 4, 5, or 6 in a row if you go on those kind of runs in the league. But they're winning, they're on a win streak right now. But I look at the Saints, and I see a team right now, speaking of identity, that's still trying to figure out what they really want to do with Derek Carr and, Kamara's back. I'm not sure. I'm looking at these two teams, and I want to say the Jags will handle business tonight on the road. But, going to New Orleans is always a tough place to play, regardless of the circumstances.
It is, but, you look at the weakness in New Orleans right now. It's on the offensive line. And, they started Maurice Hurst at left tackle. They benched Trevor Penning. Penning came in, and there's a reason why he's been benched. Like, the penalties and the bad plays he's given up, he's really struggling. And Doug Marone's been there. He's been a quality offensive line coach. But, like, this guy is really struggling outside. And, if, Derek Carr doesn't have the time right now to take the shots to Olave and Rashid Shaheed and the guys that they have that can scream off the edge. And so they're lacking a big plays. They're not running the ball the way they want to run it. And so, the defense is really good. But, you give up 20 points, you give up 20 points to Houston. Right. Take nothing away. CJ made 2 great throws to put up to 2 touchdowns. And that's the challenge for Trevor tonight is, can he get the ball to his receivers against Marshawn Lattimore, Alontae Taylor, Adebo Paulson, like these guys that want to lock you up on the outside while that rush, gets home. And Granderson's playing great, and Cam's there, and, they've got some dogs up front. So that's the challenge right now is, can the Saints offensive line hold up? Because they haven't. And that's been a real problem for them. It didn't show up against New England because New England doesn't have pass rushers. But that's the challenge right now tonight because Josh Allen's playing great. They have really talented players. Darius Williams playing great for Jacksonville right now. Foye Oluokun, who is a dynamic linebacker that literally knows what you're doing before you do it. So I like Jacksonville in this game to go in there. I think they continue to play well. The only thing I'll say, Carl, is I just don't know. They spent 2 weeks in London. They win both games. They come back. They're at home against the Colts, who they always win at home against the Colts. Now they got to go on a short week. Like, does all that travel and change and, the change in your schedule, does all that catch up to them tonight in New Orleans? Yeah,
that's the question. I agree. At some point, do they begin to fade? A bunch of injuries, and I just want to run through them, and you tell me what you think. Obviously, McCaffrey's oblique. It doesn't look like it's going to be anything serious. It looks like he'll be back. Debo was hurt. We talked about Debo Samuel, Trent Williams, 3 big-time, all-pro kinds of players for the 49ers. Ryan Tannehill, right ankle, was, carted off. Malik Willis came in. Baldy, he does not look ready, and we've not seen Will Levis at all this season. Andre Dillard, a guy they paid $10 million in guarantees, was crap. Let's be honest. He just was not good. I'm talking about the Titans, and they'd get a bye this week. Justin Fields, dislocated thumb. Not sure how that's going to work with him being able to grip the ball, etc. Garoppolo, injured back, which it seems like every year we're talking about something with Garoppolo. And then you mentioned the Lions, David Montgomery, rib, Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, there's a bunch of key injuries to teams right now that look like contenders, and then some injuries to teams that either have to figure it out or not. Is there one that jumps out and you say, hey, they got to get this right?
Well, I mean, look, McCaffrey is just different. I mean, you can put all these different guys they have, Jordan Mason and, Tyrion Price. You can put all these guys there in San Francisco. McCaffrey is just this multidimensional player that just fits perfectly. I mean, you could run him on the backside of a play and everybody else nobody even pays attention to him. But McCaffrey, you have to. And so he makes you defend sideline to sideline and goal line to goal line. And so you lose McCaffrey, you lose a lot. You just do. And the quarterback knew how to find him. And so the other guys, they can put Elijah Mitchell in there. They're good players, but they're not McCaffrey. And so I think this offense, they lost him last week. They lost a lot. And Jim Schwartz will tell you, like, the most difficult offense in the league to defense is anything coming out of the Shanahan school, whether it's McVay, McDaniel, Kyle. Like, these guys, what they do, motion shifts, pre-snap, like, it is tough on these coordinators.
Baldy, great stuff, man. Where are you at this weekend, by the way?
Well, I'm going to see Jim Schwartz in that Cleveland defense, in Indianapolis this weekend, who, Gardner Minshew kind of showed, look, Gardner you want him on your team. You want him as your backup quarterback. But I don't know long-term if that guy is, like we have seen from Gardner. Like, he is a short-term fix for a lot of teams because he's smart. But last week, when you got to be the starter and you got to, like, show off, like, you're being chased and you try to think that you have an arm like Trevor Lawrence or something. You don't. And he showed that last week. And so they struggled. But they struggled up front last week. They didn't play well in the offensive line. This could be this Cleveland team could go into Indianapolis this week and they could make this thing look pretty ugly.
I will say this before we let you go and finish up the pod. Guys, again, in the Huddle pod on YouTube. Find us, follow Baldy on social media. Check out his breakdowns. Jason Lockhon-4, part of this podcast as well. We do it every Tuesday and Thursdays, guys, as we continue to talk about the number one sport. It's the NFL. Cleveland's back half has not given up over 200 yards passing all season. That's how good they've been. They are number one in every single category, guys. Yards given up, yards per play, net passing yards per game. This could be a beatdown because I don't think the Colts are going to be able to score maybe a touchdown in this game if Cleveland comes out and plays the way they have all season.
Well, it's interesting. Like, Martin Emerson is a great player. People don't know who Martin Emerson is. Like, that guy is a lockdown corner. Denzel Ward on the other side, Greg Newsome, Del Pitt. And last week against San Francisco, they said, nobody plays San Francisco in just press man coverage because of all the motions, how you can get beat. Like, they said, give it to us. We'll do it. They did. Ayuk, didn't have the game. They said, they love these dig routes in the middle of the field. Well, we'll take the middle of the field away. And by the way, we're just going to press the line of scrimmage and challenge the quarterback. And it was a great game plan, and they executed it. But they've done that to a lot of teams. They did it to Joe Burrow week 1. This is a problem for teams. This isn't a 6-game mirage. This is who they are, and so they get after you up front, and then they challenge you in the pass game. And that's a great formula when you can pressure the quarterback with the animals they have up front, and then say, okay, you better make perfect throws under that pressure. And even a Brock Purdy, who hadn't made a mistake all year, made a mistake last week.
Through one. Yeah, he did. Baldy, enjoy the games. Enjoy your time with seeing the Browns this weekend and the Colts. Guys, we're back at you next Tuesday talking about all the things that went down in the NFL. We're getting almost to that point where, again, halfway point, and you can really see teams separating and saying, hey, these are teams that are really going to be able to maybe do something down the road in the playoffs. Enjoy the games, everybody. Carl Dukes, Brian Baldinger. It's in the Huddle.